the strongest typhoon that hit the Philippines in 2021, ravaging the central and southern regions. Thousands of families left homeless and without basic necessities.
After bagyo, sumunod naman yung mga napakalakas na mga pag-ulan. So yung mga tao na walang tirahan, walang bubong, ay na-expose naman sa ulan at sobrang lamig. So marami na rin nagkakasakit, inuubo, sinisipon, lalo na yung mga bata at matatanda.
Sa pagkaalam ko, hindi number 3. Parang number 6 o number 7. Ito, makakabangon ito, sir, mga 15 to 20 years pa.
Parang hindi ko matanggap na kasi wala na kaming matitirahan. Tapos, dito pa kami sa ospital. Aywan, hindi ko alam.
How do survivors pick up the pieces? And how are efforts to rebuild from the ground up? This is a special presentation of The Source, Odette Aftermath, and The Road to Recovery. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. Over 1.2 million families suffering from the destruction after Typhoon Odette cut through the Visayas, Mindanao, and Palawan in Luzon. Disaster management officials reported more than 400 deaths and 78 others still missing. Damage to property and infrastructure is in the billions. A number of Boholanos spent Christmas in makeshift shelters or evacuation centers, trying to make sense of how to begin from scratch. Communities were off the grid for days without power and water. Our Chrissy Dimatulak was there and saw how residents were dealing with the aftermath of the monster storm.
Lydia Tumanda considers herself lucky to have survived the wrath of Typhoon Odette, which struck a few days before Christmas. She admits she and her family were stubborn enough not to heed the call of the local government to evacuate.
Yun lang talaga ang namin nga safe kami lahat. Pero parang na-trauma din kami sa nangyayari. Malakas ang hangin, ulan. Marunong kami lumangoy pero hindi tayo sakarin sa tubig.
Lydia's house withstood the brunt of the storm, but other families were not as fortunate. Many homes were crushed by trees uprooted by Odette's fierce winds. With the typhoon already gone, residents are cleaning up and salvaging whatever they can. Many are still in evacuation centers, where COVID-19 protocols are not the priority at the moment.
Siguro hindi na namin naisipan yung socialisasyon para may matulugan lang kami, okay na.
The lack of basic necessities like potable water remain a problem in most parts of Bohol. People have to line up in water refilling stations for hours.
Alas 4 pa po, ma'am. Madaling araw, 3 araw na po. At saka hanap kami ng hanap, punta kami ng Panglao at saka Tagbilaran. At saka ang isang galoy ay tag 50 pesos.
The provincial government says it is doing its best to deliver the needs of Boholanos affected by the typhoon. But it also needs some assistance from the national government.
We're asking the DSWD na kailangan mag-kick in na sila because 5 days after the crisis, they've only delivered 6,000 packs of food and the funds are with them, no? So we're waiting for them.
Bohol is also calling for help from other local governments in Luzon that were spared from the storm. Chrissy Dimatulak, CNN Philippines.
Let's go straight to the sources of the story. First, we have our CNN Philippines correspondent, Chrissy Dimatulak, and also joining us is Bohol Governor Art Yap. Let me start with Chrissy. Chrissy, balikan lang natin, please describe to us what it was like during the first few days after Odette's devastation.
Well, Pinky, first of all, when we arrived in Bohol, it was very difficult kasi sa Panglao Airport pa lang, wala nang signal. And so we had to ask our van driver to get us to a place with a reliable signal for us to be able to report. He took us to Tagbilaran, which is the capital city of Bohol. And on the way there, we saw how the houses were devastated. And of course, power and communication were down. And we saw people, they were lining up in banks and gasoline stations because, and these people came from different parts of Bohol because according to them, Tagbilaran is the only city in the island that had establishments which were open, and so it was very difficult for everyone. Our first coverage was in Lubok. Lubok is known for its river, and so when Typhoon Odette hit, the river rose, and then yung Lubok kasi it's also known for the floating restaurants. And so
Right.
when you get to Lubok, you would see that the boats which were used for these businesses, they were turned over by Odette. And all the people, they were cleaning up their houses because it was filled with mud. And most of the houses there were made out of light materials. So they had to like collect all the plywood and all that they can to make makeshift houses from their for their homes. And we were supposed to go to Ubay, which is part of northern Bohol, but it will take us, according to the van driver, because of the debris that's covering the roads, it will take us about 6 hours to get there. So while in Bohol, we covered, aside from Lubok, we covered also in Panglao. And Panglao is known for its coastal area. It has white sand, and it's a very well-known tourist spot. And so when you go to Panglao, you would also see na yung mga negosyo ng mga fishermen, ng mga mangingisda, yung mga bangka nila halos naubos at nasira dahil kay Odette. And when you talk to them, they would get emotional nga kasi syempre this is their livelihood that we're talking about. And they would get emotional kasi syempre they have to start from scratch kasi wala na talagang natira, and you would see them like collecting the pieces of their boats from the sea kasi yung mga makina wala na, and they would use that, they say that they would use that as well for like island hopping and things like that. And so it was a very challenging situation in Bohol, not just in Bohol, but you know, just to share, we also went to, after Bohol, we also went to Cebu, which is had a very similar situation. Power and communication were also down, and people were also lining up for basic needs like water, gasoline, and also they were lining up in remittance centers kasi malapit na nga magpasko during that time. Pinky?
Yeah. It must have been also very hard for you rather, having to travel from one place to another, and especially it was such a challenge moving from one area to another. Sabi nga ni Governor Art Yap, ang Bohol, just to give context, Governor Yap, hindi ho ba sinabi niyo sa akin that in Bohol has actually the most number of LGUs, if I'm not mistaken, sa Pilipinas?
Yes po, that's correct. And good morning po. We have 48 LGUs. And for the first 5 days, we could only talk to 20 LGUs. And even up to today, ongoing in the other hall are all the municipal DILG officials. And we're doing an assessment. And I just got the report, and all towns unstable. Smart and Globe, meron, minsan may 1 bar, minsan may 2 bars, and then biglang mawawala. Yung ibang towns, none. Talagang zero yung coverage, no? So the challenge in the first few days was not only all the downed electric posts, all the downed transmission lines that blocked all our ways, but connectivity itself was a challenge. That's why 5 days on, we only talked to 20 LGUs. And then what happened was we had to physically ask people to go and talk to the mayors and to get their reports. And we got them together here in the provincial capital 7 days after Odette.
Governor Art, I have to say that the signal is quite spotty. I'm not hearing some of what you were explaining to us, but I just want to go back to some of the things that I heard you say, especially when we spoke to you a few days, maybe two days, as soon as we were able to catch you, because even having to call you was such a challenge. Kasi pati ang inyong pong bahay nasira, and you had to stay in a hotel for I don't know, for quite some time. What would be, you say, is the situation now?
The situation now, Pinky, is we still don't have power. There has been a partial restoration. The distribution utilities are now drawing 4.8 to about 5 megawatts from a power barge in Ubay. And that has been able to power towns just for a few hours. So 5 megawatts out of a total provincial requirement of 90 megawatts is a far way off, Pinky. So technically, we're still in the dark. No? And when you don't have power, you also don't have water because the water refilling stations are not working. So ang pinaprioritize namin ngayon is magbigay kami ng mga generator sets. That's why I've been asking people who want to donate na kung magdo-donate kayo, at least upwards of 8 kVA. 8 kVA na mga gensets, and we're supplying this to private refilling stations so that we can at least bring up capacity to 50 to 60% that they can produce water on their own. Ito yung malaking problema. You also need power to help the telcos because the telcos are also, they need that power to bring back connectivity. So hindi lang down towers ng telcos, yung power itself kailangan rin. Sa power, Pinky, there are many moving parts. Assuming you can connect to later, which is our power source, our distribution utilities must also be okay, yung mga distribution lines dito. And they're still fixing that right now. Kaya we can draw up to 5 megawatts, pero many of our distribution utilities have to fix their transmission lines first. No, these are moving parts that must all come together. That's why that is the problem at this point in time. So to your question, where we are today, intermittent power close to zero, close to nothing. And because there is no power still in the island province of Bohol, water is hard to come by. That's why we're distributing gensets.
Yeah. Balikan lang kita just to follow up on that, Governor Yap. Remember when we spoke, that was one of the urgent needs that you were talking about. Kailangan talaga ng mga genset for the simple reason that you will need this to have clean water. Ano po? In terms of gensets, if you can just help us understand the situation, how many has been donated or has been sent, and how much more do you need, considering that this is a whole approach from energy to distribution?
Actually, right now, based on the numbers that the provincial government has come up with, we're still looking at about 50 generator sets that should at least be 8 kVA upwards, mga 50. Kung makakuha kami ng 50 ngayon, we can probably bring our water refilling capacity already up to 60%. So presently, for example, ang DOE-OCD, nagbigay sila ng 52 gensets but 3.5 kVA lang. So it doesn't, you operate for a while and then you have to shut down kasi magtitrip, hindi kakayanin nung operation, no? So water refilling stations. Ang EDC, the Lopez Group, gave 10 6.5 kVA. So they will have to make do with that. We've been distributing our own. The provincial government has distributing our own gensets. But based on our count nga, based on what the private sector has, what we've distributed, and what we still need to at least bring us up to about 60% capacity, we still need about 50. But kung magbibigay lang ng 50, sana, Pinky, yung mga 8 kVA and above na capacity. Yun ang kailangan to at least allow the water refilling stations to work. Because kung tatanungin natin yung NGCP to fix their 2 towers in Ubay, that's still going to take up to April. So,
matagal po
we
yun.
will have to survive on power barges until that time.
Apo. Ubay, yung sinasabi din po ni Chrissy, yung, hindi ba, Chrissy, you were saying, you were asking the driver just to be able to get to Ubay, 6 na oras yon. And considering meron pang problema sa mga daan, during that time you were covering. I just want to go back quickly to Chrissy. I hope we can try to fix our connection. If we can, kay Governor Yap, sayang kasi yung mga data na binibigay sa atin. Kung pwedeng i-phone touch na lang natin si Governor Yap, if that will help, that might be better because I really want to talk about post-rehabilitation. Kasi balikan kita, doon sa mga tao, I know it must have been very hard. Where do you even begin? The moment you reached Bohol, signal was a challenge, and that's the first thing you need to do, obviously, as a reporter, to be able to film and be able to send the stories you want to be able to send to our CNN headquarters. What was striking, would you say, the moment you got to Bohol sa iyong nakita?
Well, Pinky, the most striking thing about it is, yun nga, what you mentioned earlier, that getting to these places, like for example, from Tagbilaran, we needed to go to Lubok. That's the closest place that we can get to that was really devastated by Typhoon Odette. And so for us to get there, it took us like 4 hours as well. And so we had to file packages from there. And then the most striking thing about it was, syempre yung mga tao na who experienced Odette firsthand, and they would say na it doesn't bother them that they would celebrate Christmas in evacuation centers, because at least in evacuation centers, they would get to celebrate the holidays together, and of course, at least doon may supply sila ng pagkain at tubig, because like what Governor Yap mentioned earlier, talagang may problem with the water supply kasi nga power is down, and you could see that. I think I also mentioned that as well in the package that I filed, that yung pila sa mga water refilling stations sobrang haba, Pinky. Like for example, when I ask people, anong oras kayo nag-start na pumila dito? They would say na they would be lining up since 4 a.m. Tapos yung mga water refilling stations na to, they would do their own efforts to purchase their own generator sets. And so, kaya, because of that, because of the limitations as well given by these generator sets, people per family, kailangan mga 2 containers lang yung kailangan i-purchase. And also, syempre, for you to power yung mga generator sets na to, you need gasoline, you need petroleum. So, yung mga pila din as well sa mga gasoline stations, napakahaba. And then, dun mo makikita yung need ng mga tao talaga na they need basic necessities, and parang it's very scarce to get these at during that time na parang we arrived in Bohol December 21, and it was just a few days or less than a week from Odette, and so you would see na sobrang fresh pa rin ng mga sugat nila, and you would see na talagang andun pa rin yung pangangailangan, and it's a very long road to recovery from what we saw. Pinky?
Okay. Chrissy, thank you. I'm going to try to speak to Governor Yap. Again, sabi niyo nga, Governor, basically you're still in the dark. Ano po. Let's talk about funding. Are you getting enough funds? Are you getting enough assistance? Are you getting enough help?
Well, given the situation, dinivide na nga namin. So sinabi ko sa National Housing Authority, huwag nyo nang idaan yung pera siguro sa local government. Kayo nang bumili dyan, especially sa building materials. Kasi ang critical ngayon, Pinky, is the provincial government can work on the food packs and the water. Yung shelter, ang importante, yung Transitional Emergency Core Shelter, because more than 200,000 families have been affected. So yung totally affected doon, mga 100,000 families yun. 100,000 smashed houses, wala nang bahay. So ang ginagamit nila, trapal, kung saan sila makakuha ng mga recyclable materials, yun yung ginagamit nila for their transitional housing. Yung iba, partially damaged. So, and I would like to thank General Del Rosario and GM Escalada that they've been receptive to the idea that they just buy the GI sheets and the framing and the plywood that they will supply to the people here. Because
if you send the money here, there's such a great demand here at this point in time that it's driving up the prices and nauubos yung supply. So mas mabuti pa, bilhin na lang sa National Capital Region and then ipaship sa Coast Guard at saka sa Navy so that they can distribute the transitional core housing because people now are exposed. And this is the time of the year because of the weather and because of COVID that with respiratory diseases and with lack of water, it can potentially turn into a perfect storm for an outbreak of diseases. We are already seeing some waterborne diseases that we're trying to address at this point in time together with the DOH and the provincial health offices. We've been monitoring the evacuation centers because we have about 100,000 people in evacuation centers right now. So yun ang binabante. Mag-divide na lang tayo ng trabaho. National Housing, HUDC, will take care of bringing in the goods and they're already working on that right now. So maraming salamat sa kanila. The DSWD and us continue with the food packs. The DSWD, I would like to let you know the latest. They are now at 80,000 food packs that have been distributed. This is Operation Day 20 after Odette. The provincial government is now at 125,000 food packs. So kami nakapag-distribute na kami ng 125,000, ang DSWD 80,000. Ang mga private institutions like the Ramon Aboitiz Foundation, nasa 15,000. Ang Philippine Red Cross, nagbigay na rin 2,000. Yung Tsuchi Foundation, wala lang dito yung report ng Tsuchi Foundation, but I know that they've been going around, namimigay na rin sila. So we can concentrate on the food and on the water distribution while other government agencies can concentrate on other things. And I understand that the President's contingency fund, they are downloading funds directly to the mayors right now. So maraming salamat rin to the Office of the President for the funds being downloaded straight to LGUs.
Governor Artiap, sir, maraming salamat po sa inyo and we'll continue to get more updates from you regarding the situation in Bohol. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Pinky. Huwag sana kayo magsawa.
Hindi po. Coming up, a world-famous surfing destination was ground zero after Odette. We will look at the situation in Siargao after the break. We will be right back. You're watching a special presentation of the source on the Odette Aftermath. I'm Pinky Webb. Typhoon Odette first unleashed its fury in Siargao. The famous surfing paradise has been transformed into a virtual wasteland overnight. Our Chrissy Dimatulak is back to share with us how she endured what she did to be able to travel by land and by sea to reach the island and see firsthand Siargao. Chrissy, kwento mo sa amin, anong pinagdaanan mo?
Well, thank you from Bohol. We were just supposed to cover in Bohol because walang available flights going to different parts of Visayas and Mindanao. And so from Bohol, since the devastation in Siargao was so bad, syempre we had to cover it as well. And so from Bohol, we had to take a boat ride to Cebu, which took us 4 hours. And from Cebu, we had to take another boat ride, which is like an 8 to 9 hour ferry ride going to Siargao City kasi wala namang direct na barko papuntang Siargao. So basically, for us to get to Siargao, it took us 15 hours because you could just see the difficulty and challenges brought upon by Typhoon Odette. Because wala talagang available flights. So it just goes to show na not just power and communication, but also transportation was greatly affected by the typhoon. And so when we finally got to a ro-ro going to Siargao, and then malapit na kami sa isla, makikita mo doon pa lang na sobrang yung devastation brought by Odette. Kasi diba sa Siargao, it's known for its coconut trees. It's known for the lush coconut trees. And when you get a sight or get a glimpse of the island, you would see na yung mga coconut trees na to dapang-dapa na, and halos makalbo na yung mga mountains. And of course, yung mga houses from afar, you would see na almost all of it were flattened. Kasi in Siargao, most of the houses, most of the structures there are made out of light materials. They would share na the last typhoon, the last really bad typhoon that got to their island was back in the 1980s. It was Typhoon Nita. Usually, the locals would tell us na the typhoons would come and go in the island. So they admit na nung nabalitaan nila itong si Typhoon Odette, medyo hindi nila pinansin. Some of them evacuated, pero nung naramdaman na nila on December 16 na medyo lumalakas na talaga yung hangin and yung mga puno nililipad na, that's when they felt the gravity of the situation, and many of them evacuated already. The worst thing about it is, even in evacuation centers, Pinky, nasira pati yung mga bubong na evacuation centers, yung mga ospital na people would think that safe na sila sa mga lugar na to. Hindi pala, kasi pati yung mga lugar na to, it wasn't safe for Typhoon Odette kasi pati ito nasira. And so those were some of the challenges that we saw simply by the moment we arrived in the island. Pinky?
Okay. All right. Chrissy, thanks for that. Let's talk to Dr. Romina Rosillion Sahulga. She's the Municipal Administrator of General Luna in Siargao. Dr. Romina, are you there? Welcome to The Source. Thank you for your time.
Yes. Good morning again, Pinky. Thank you for this opportunity to be in your show.
Yeah. You know, Dr. Romina, I also spoke to a resident of Siargao, and it was a very traumatic experience for her. And a few days after, thank God, no, nakaalis siya with her son. I heard reports, though, at least some good news that meron na pong ilang mga establishments na nagbubukas. Is this correct?
Yes, Miss Pinky. Actually, some of the establishments here, they have generators. So one establishment here, after like 2 days, when things was already clearing, they already operated the restaurants because a lot of tourists were trapped here. And then dito naman lahat ng mga business people, hindi naman sila umaalis. So marami pa ring mga customers. But right now, after 3 weeks, I think may open na ng mga 5 or 6 restaurants here in Siargao.
Okay, so sabi nyo nga it's been 3 weeks. What is the focus right now? Are you getting enough assistance?
As for Siargao, a few days after the typhoon, we already received the food assistance, the food packages from the SWD, from the provincial government, also the local government. Tried also giving some food supplies to the people here in General Luna. And then the businessmen, the private organizations, lahat sila na nandito ngayon sa Siargao, tumutulong din sila at ibang mga organizations. So when it comes to food relief, as of now, we are okay. But the real problem now is the roofing or the shelter for the people, because only in General Luna, there are less than like 80 families in the evacuation center. But most of the families who are not in the evacuation center are taking shelter in a makeshift houses, but that are not conducive to living.
You know, actually, Dr. Romina, what I heard was, especially in the beginning, the hardest part was dahil wala nga daw mga bubong, ang init daw during the day at umuulan sa gabi.
Yes, totoo talaga yan. Sobrang init right after the typhoon, then umuulan sa gabi. So, sobrang nakakaawa talaga kaming lahat dito. So ngayon, the government provided some yung mga tarpaulins to the families, but ang problema talaga namin is yung mga bubong, mga GI sheets, mga plywood na para mas maganda talaga yung tirahan ng mga tao dito.
Are there enough supplies coming?
Some of the government, I mean the provincial government are procuring, also the municipal government, but as to the municipal government, of course, we cannot afford to give shelter to the whole population of General Luna because we have 7,000 plus families here, only in General Luna, but siguro the whole Siargao, we are like 100,000, 80 to 100,000 here in the whole Siargao. So in GL, we are 7,000 plus, 7,400 families. But a lot of some of the local government, like Borongan City, already sent 2,000 sheets of GI sheets. So we already distributed that to some of the barangays. So other organizations are promising to help us, but maybe because of it's so hard to transport here in Siargao because the weather conditions right now is not good. Medyo maalon, daming gale warning, kaya yung pag-transport ng goods, pahirapan din, Miss Pinky, actually.
It's still a challenge up to now. All right, we'd like to thank you also for joining us and giving us an update, Dr. Romina. And of course, we wish you all in the hope that in the days and weeks to come, the weather improves, more materials will come in, and you will be able to rebuild how beautiful Siargao is. Maraming salamat po sa inyo, Dr. Romina. And of course, to our correspondent, Chrissy Di Matula. Thank you. Coming up, we're going to talk about how Odette almost wiped out communities in Dinagat Islands. It took a while before communication in the province was restored. If you can remember, we will be taking a short break. We'll be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Over 33,000 families in Dinagat Islands are seeking aid to build back from the ruins. They are homeless and without livelihood. Our correspondent, George Cahilas, tells us provincial officials are turning to the national government and humanitarian groups for help.
Potable water remains scarce in Dinagat Island weeks after Typhoon Odette battered the province. The local government started rationing in different areas using portable filtration device attached to fire trucks. Despite these efforts, diarrhea cases are still increasing. The Provincial Health Office has recorded 180 cases since December 16, of which 3 died of dehydration. Residents with severe cases of diarrhea were brought to the hospital, like Ana Lu Alyawan from San Jose Town.
Kikuan may tubig, sir. Nasalod lang, kibalihos lang siya. Oo. Dayon, ato lang na adlaw, muna mo ginainom, wala ginakulo. Oo, niya. Wala to, sir. Niya. Nagkuha din ang mga tiyan. Naglibang, sir. Niya. Tulok adlaw. Bago na abot diri.
Alyawan, along with a number of patients, is being observed in this corridor as almost the entire Dinagat District Hospital was destroyed by Odette. The operating room, emergency room, the pharmacy, the wards, and even the administration building. Water drips from the ceiling in the small space where the patients stay when raining.
Dito sana, kahit dito lang na area, palagyan ng mga atip yung mga konting butas. Now, ang problem is, yun nga ang sabi nila, complete rehabilitation. So, pinaayos na lang namin yung area dito na kung pwede makumpuni para hindi lang masyadong mabasa dito.
Medical staff tried their best to make the hospital still functional to serve those who are in need, but they can only do so much. With more people getting sick, The hospital management is bracing for possible inrush of patients.
After bagyo, sumunod naman yung mga napakalakas na mga pag-ulan. So yung mga tao na walang tirahan, walang bubong, ay na-expose naman sa ulan at sobrang lamig. So marami na rin nagkakasakit, inuubo, sinisipon, lalo na yung mga bata at matatanda.
The local government hopes that their medical capacity will be augmented to further help residents for their needs. From Dinagat Islands, George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have our correspondent, George Cahiles. George, I want to start with that package of yours. Let's jump off there. I heard yung ospital ngayon, if I'm not mistaken, dalawa lang ang doktor. Yung dalawang doktor na yon, sila lang yung nag-shift on a 12-hour shift. Is that the situation still now?
I'm really sure right now, Pinky, if the situation is still the same. But we were told, Pinky, that they're really having a hard time managing the hospital right now. And they only have 2 doctors during that time because some of the doctors left. They went to the main island just to seek shelter because their houses were also damaged by the typhoon, and there were only 2 doctors left in the area. Those 2 doctors are residing in the Dinagat town, so they can easily go to the hospital whenever they are needed. Pero if you see the situation in that hospital, grabe talaga yung situation. Kaya lang we arrived there almost 2 weeks na after the typhoon hit the area. Kaya wala na yung sobrang daming mga pasyente na nagpunta dyan. Right after the onslaught of the typhoon. Kasi sabi nung doctor na nakausap natin, pila talaga yung mga nagpunta doon para magpagamot. Some of them had cuts, some of them had wounds, some of them were suffering from diarrhea dahil wala ngang tubig. So you can just imagine they are staying in that small corridor. Yung mga natirang pasyente and tumutulo pa. So buti na lang may mga nag-donate na rin ng mga tents that's from United Nations wherein they can use as a temporary area where they can put their or they can place their patients there temporarily habang nagpapagaling.
Yeah, ang dami ng pamilya sa Dinagat Islands, George, kasi it took a while also to find out really the situation there because communication was down. We couldn't really get information, especially during the first couple of days. That's 33,000 families, as I mentioned a while ago. You multiply that by 5 or 6, that leads you to about 150,000 individuals. Ganyan kadami din ang tao sa Dinagat Islands. Tell us more, pagdating mo doon, ano nakita mo? Ano una mong ginawa?
Well, in a way, Pinky, since I arrived there almost 2 weeks since the onset of Odette, yung expectation ko nasa early phase na dapat ng recovery yung mga tao. But from the Roro, kita na agad yung massive destruction sa isla. Ganon din yung pagdating namin sa main island mismo. Kahit sira na yung mga, kahit sira na yung mga bahay ng mga tao, I didn't see the level of desperation that I saw from the people who lost their homes in Siargao City. Kasi sa Siargao, madami yung mga nakatambay sa mga kalsada. May mga karatula na humihingi ng tulong. Surprisingly, wala akong nakitang ganon sa Dinagat. To think na walang kuryente, walang maayos na supply ng tubig, communication lines were still down, and there's not enough food supply for everyone. But yung attitude nila was like, okay, we need help, but kung matatanggap kaming tulong, thank you. Pero kung wala, we have to find ways on how to feed our family. So, ganun yung ginagawa nila nung dumating kami doon sa area. So, they were looking for food supply, Yung iba nga taga Dinagat, inabutan din namin doon sa ng supply sa may maiuwi pabalik sa Dinagat.
Okay. George, thank you for that report and joining me this morning, our correspondent, George Cahiles. Meantime, we're going to also look at the province of Palawan, which was not spared from Odette's wrath. We will be right back. You're watching a special presentation of The Source on Odette's aftermath. The Palawan provincial government estimates losses from Odette reaching nearly 8 billion pesos. Parts of the capital, which is Puerto Princesa, and nearby towns now face the grim task of recovery and rehabilitation. Let's go straight to the sources of the story. We have our correspondent, Tristan Odalo, who was in Palawan for about a week, and Palawan Public Information Officer Attorney CJ Kojamco. Let me first start with our correspondent, Tristan, and CJ, hello to you as well. Tristan, first of all, no, please tell us, ano yung mga kwento o yung masasabi mong common stories na narinig mo mula doon sa mga survivors ng Odette?
Pinky, marami yung nagulat doon sa pananalasa ng bagyong Odette, lalo na yung mga nakausap natin nung pumunta tayo sa Palawan. Nakapaghanda naman sila bago daw dumating yung bagyo, pero hindi nila inaasahan kung gaano kalakas yung naging pagtama sa kanila nung bagyong Odette. Karamihan pa sa mga residenteng nakausap natin, ilang dekada nang nakatira sa Palawan, pero ito na raw bagyong Odette yung pinakamalakas na naranasan nila. Sabi naman ng ilang local official, ang matatawag dito sa napagdaanan ng mga taga Palawan ay combination of natural hazards. Kumbaga, hindi lang malalakas na hangin, hindi lang mga storm surge o malakas na ulan, kundi nagsama-sama pa, sinabayan pa to ng landslide, sinabayan pa to ng mga malalakas na hangin din at ulan. Kaya naman nagsama-sama yung hazard. Kaya ito yung lawak ng pinsala na naranasan ng maraming lugar sa Palawan.
Kaya siguro sinasabi nila, Tristan, ito na yung pinakamatindi nilang naranasan. Tatanungin ko na muna si CJ. CJ, would you say also that this is the worst that Palawan has seen so far?
Yes, actually, Pinky, yung Palawan naman hindi naman laging dinadaanan ng bagyo. So, but basically, ito yung isa sa mga pinakamalakas na dumaan dito. We've already prepared, pero kulang yung aming naging preparation. Talagang malakas, hindi namin in-expect na ganoon ang dilubyong dadalhin itong bagyong Odette.
Bakit kaya ganon? Siguro, CJ, tell us, bakit nyo sinasabing hindi kayo nakapaghanda ng sapat?
Well, ang aming ang report ng Pag-asa sa amin, ang mostly tatamaan is the northern municipalities. But still, even the southern municipalities dinaanan din ng bagyo. But sabi natin, nakapag-evacuate naman kami. But ang lakas din talaga ng hangin and yung ulan, malakas. So, sa landslides at nahirapan kami sa first days para madala yung aming relief goods doon sa aming mga munisipyo.
Kasi ang Palawan napakalaki rin. Let's go to Tristan. Tristan, we were talking about this yesterday. Ang Palawan kasi, ang mga kilala dyan, syempre yung Puerto Princesa, Coron, kilala din dyan. Anong mga napuntahan mo? Kasi ang madalas nating naririnig na talagang tinamaan ng Odette is Rojas.
Pinky, we were able to cover the northeastern and northwestern parts of Puerto Princesa and the town of Rojas. Actually, hindi mo na nga kailangang lumayo pa mula doon sa Central Business District ng Puerto Princesa kasi ilang kilometro lang mula roon, makikita mo na rin agad yung impact ng bagyong Odette dito sa mga community na to. So, doon pa lang kita mo na nagbagsakan yung mga nasira yung mga bahay, yung mga malalaking puno na inanod dahil sa flash flood. Nandun pa rin sa mga gilid ng kalsada. Marami ding mga kalsada rin ang nasira or partially damaged dahil din sa bagyo. So ito yung mga barangay na napuntahan natin, yung nasa northeastern at northwestern part ng Puerto Princesa. At nabisita rin natin yung isa pa nga sa sentro ng tinamaan ng bagyong Odette, yung Rojas.
Tristan, in terms of Rojas, no, gaano kalayo si Rojas sa Puerto Princesa?
In a normal day, or sabi ng driver namin, kung hindi nasira yung mga daan, nasa kakayanin daw yun ng mga 1.5 hour from Puerto Princesa. Pero nung kami pumunta doon, dahil ang daming sirang kalsada, karaniwan mga one-way, talagang nagibigayan yung mga sasakyan para lang makadaan doon sa mga tulay na may damage na. So it took us at least 2 or 2.5 hours bago marating yung Rojas at mabisita yung mga nasirang community doon.
Actually, that's still not bad kung 1.5 tapos nadagdagan lang. Kasi ibang maraming kalsada dyan, natabunan nga eh. At sigurado, maraming lubak-lubak dyan, maraming mga malalaking mga bato, kaya nahihirapan to move from one place to another. Let's go to CJ. CJ, tell us more about relief and rehabilitation efforts. Where is the focus right now?
Ma'am Pinky, we are still continuously having our repacking efforts here in the capital. We want to replenish those food packs that we have given the first week and the second week of after the onslaught of Typhoon Odette. And now we are already starting with our rehabilitation efforts. In fact, we are now giving out cash assistance to our residents in order to help them to start building up their houses again.
Ano po yung mga tulong pa na naibigay na at ibibigay pa?
Well, Ma'am Pinky, now we are giving out 5,000 pesos cash assistance to every families na naapektuhan, and we are still in the process of giving out yung aming mga food packs kasi our food packs is only good enough for 5 days. So every time na aabot na kami sa 5 days, we want to replenish that just in order to make sure na walang magugutom dito sa amin sa Palawan.
All right. Maraming salamat po. Thank you to our correspondent, Tristan Odalo, and Palawan Public Information Officer, Attorney CJ Kojamco. We will be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. Let's now speak to Office of a Civil Defense Administrator, USEC Ricardo Halad. USEC, welcome to the show. Let me already begin. Let's start with this. What is the total assessment now in terms of damages caused by Typhoon Odette?
Good morning, Pinky. What we now have are initial estimates of damages. I think 16.9 billion damage to infrastructure and about 8 billion damage to agriculture. But this initial estimates are subject for validation in the conduct of the post-disaster needs assessment that we are now doing. At this stage, our assessment teams at the national, regional, and local level are generating or doing their tabletop data generation and assessment. And within this week, I understand they will be starting with their field assessment. So our focus right as of now is, of course, sustainment of relief operations, extension of early recovery interventions like the assistance that the DTI, Department of Agriculture, and even the local governments are using with support from the national government agencies with funds. And then planning or starting with a post-disaster needs assessment, which will feed into the crafting of the comprehensive rehabilitation and recovery plan. So that's the bird's eye view of our activities right now.
Yeah, thank you for that. I want to go more micro because of what we discussed. Isa-isahin ko lang very quickly, sir. Umpisahan po natin sa Bohol. We spoke rather to Governor R.T. Aftermath. Sabi nga niya, we're still in the dark here. How is Bohol and what is the work that is being done now in order to bring back yung kanilang problema sa kuryente?
So first, augmentation of resources to the province of Bohol. We are doing that. And restoration activities like the restoration of power, that's being led by DOE. And of course, restoration of telco services by our private providers with support from the Philippine government, of course. Okay. And logistics handling, we are doing that. We have dispatched several flights of our air assets, the military and uniform services, as well as private cargo airline.
Okay.
And likewise, we are also looking into how the province is distributing these resources.
I see. And in Siargao, one of the many problems, as in the other areas, is that they need materials, no, USEC, para po sa paggawa ng kanilang mga bubong. That's of course very important in many other areas, even Dinagat Island. In fact, even their hospital. What is being done, or what kind of help Ang problema ho kasi sinasabi ngayon sa Siargao is still may problema pa po sa weather dahil the seas are still rough. Ano pong tulong ang naipapadala sa kanila? At isama na rin po natin ang Dinagat Islands.
Yeah. Unang-una, yung pamimigay ng mga shelter materials like tarpaulin at saka sakulin. Kahapon, nagkaroon ng 2 flights ng Boeing 737 diyan sa Butuan. At yung mga materyales o supplies na yun ay dadalhin sa Siargao at Dinagat. Ano? At nagpatuloy pa yung flight na yun ngayon, galing sa Clark papunta ng Butuan for delivery of more shelter materials. At the same time, yung ating NHA at saka DSWD are giving out financial or cash assistance to families with damaged houses. And we have organized yung shelter cluster at the national at saka regional level para magkaroon ng focus yung ating assistance for the shelter needs of our people needing support or aid.
Kailangan po yun, ano? The shelter assistance is very vital para po sa mga kababayan natin right now. And lastly, in Palawan, sir.
Ano naman to? We have focus areas in all the regions affected. Caraga, Region 8, Central Visayas, Western Visayas, and as well as in Mimaropa. Specifically, Palawan ang ating tinitingnan dyan sa Mimaropa. So, and at the national level, we have activated the crisis management team being headed by the SWD, replicated naman dyan sa mga regions affected. In Caraga, for example, that's being headed by Undersecretary Budjungan of the SWD. In Central Visayas. So itong dalawang region ang pinaka-focus natin, Caraga and Central Visayas. So in Central Visayas, the crisis management team of the region is being headed by Assistant Secretary in Cabo of DSWD. And they are being supported operationally by OCD regional directors. So organize yung ating response, Pinky. And while doing the response right now, we are looking at the full rehabilitation recovery of these areas affected.
Yeah. Is there a timeline for that?
Timeline on the conduct of PDNA, we should be completing that before the end of this month. And that papunta na yan sa drafting ng comprehensive rehabilitation recovery plan. And we hope to present to the full council of the NDRRMC, the draft, by February 18.
All right. Office of Civil Defense Administrator, Undersecretary Ricardo Halad. Sir, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Pinky. Good morning.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for joining us here on this special edition of The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.